Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to episode 107 of the Daily List Report. It's hard to believe we are 107 episodes into this labor of love. Today we have, honestly, a real treat. We are very, very lucky to be joined by Joyce Rey. If you don't know Joyce, you should, and if you don't, you will after this. But I'm honored to be able to have a conversation with her today. She's had a 40-year career in real estate, sold $4.5 billion in real estate. Last year sold the most expensive privately listed home in the US, reportedly at $150 million. And here's the important part, right? Joyce doesn't have to do this, but she's doing this, as you've seen from a lot of really top agents, because she cares about this business and she cares about seeing this industry grow. And so her taking the time to share her thoughts and ideas and experience with you is indicative of exactly that. And that is the mindset of a top producer, which is somebody who goes value first and who gives back. She's currently the executive director at Coldwell Banker Global Luxury and has all sorts of amazing accolades to her name. But I don't want to spoil any of this, and I'd rather her tell you herself. So Joyce, welcome to the show.
Well, I'm happy to be here, Randy, and great to meet you.
Oh, it's great to meet you too, Joyce. There's so much that we can talk about here, but as we touched on kind of in the lead up to our recording here, I'd love for you to take a moment to sort of introduce yourself, but specifically, you don't have to be selling real estate anymore, right? Probably for a long time you didn't have to, but you're still doing it because you love this business. And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about why you love this business so much and talk a little bit about sort of who you are so our agents can get to know you.
Well, the great thing about the real estate, there are a lot of great things about the real estate business, but the residential real estate business in particular is a business about people. And if you love people, and if you love architecture, it is for you. I love the challenge that each day poses. I love the fact that I am my own boss and I am organizing and planning every day to improve my business and move it forward and keep my clients happy. And it's an exciting business, and there's nothing more exciting than making a deal in my book.
Yes.
But I've met so many wonderful people over these decades. I've met the most fabulous realtors. I've met the most incredible human beings. I've sold some of the most gorgeous houses, and I plan to continue doing that for quite some time.
Absolutely. I have no doubt, Joyce. Joyce, let me ask you a question, right? Being a real estate agent, and I've seen the data, it isn't generally regarded as being a very respected career. Unfortunately, right? Because I think that most people don't understand the work that a real estate agent does, and they don't get to hear from people like you who get so passionate about matching somebody with their perfect house. What is the industry doing wrong, right? What should we be doing to make sure that it gets the respect that it deserves?
I don't know what the answer to that is. And I wish I did, because you're right. Matching, when someone gets excited about the house, I just had a recent situation where someone wrote the most beautiful letter about how they loved the house and how they wanted to raise their family in the house.
Yeah.
And you sell them that house. It makes your heart sing. And when you list a beautiful property and you go there for the first time to show it to a client, I get more excited than the buyer. So it's a business that's full of all sorts of satisfactions. And I don't know. Well, I think actually we're becoming more important interestingly enough, in this COVID environment. The fact that people's residential circumstances are so much more important because they're spending so much more time at home.
Absolutely.
We all of a sudden are becoming more important in their lives. So in that way, perhaps our ranking will improve.
I certainly hope so. I think there is a bit of a renaissance, if you will, right, of the role of an agent. And what's interesting is that if you look at the data, Joyce, even from 4 or 5 years ago, millennials are using real estate agents more than other generations and demographics. And so there's something so fundamental about having this guide by your side when you go through this process. And I think you're also right that real estate is so much more than a transaction, right? When you sell your home, if it's not just an investment property, you remember raising your children there, right? If I think about if I were to sell my house, I remember my kids riding their bikes and writing on the walls and, the damage on the walls because of my son playing hockey inside the house, right? All of those things are these amazing memories. It's more than a transaction, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Many times, right at the moment, I'm selling a house that was in this family for 60 years.
Wow.
So the woman passed away at age 103 after living in the house for 60 years. So, you can imagine how important that house is to that family.
Absolutely.
And I understand that because I had it in my own situation. When my mom passed away, she had owned the house for I think 40 years. So it's so important in everyone's lives, and it's become so much more so now.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And you made the point, right? You said that people want maybe the extra bedroom because they need to work from home and that's an office, or they want a bigger backyard or a pool or a place for a gym, right? I think that residential real estate and agents in particular are going to benefit tremendously from what's happening right now as we change fundamentally how we work and where we work, because people are migrating, right? We're seeing the data in the Bay Area, New York City, whatever. People are fleeing tier one urban markets for more affordable second tier markets where they can get that extra space. And now they have the flexibility to do that.
Yes, we see that even within the Beverly Hills market, the properties that have more land, more privacy, etc., are in demand.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. I have a fun little question for you, Joyce. Tell me about the first home you ever sold. Do you remember it?
I do. It was a rather modest house by most standards. At the time, you laughed, the asking price was $129,000.
Oh, wow.
I represented the former student body president of the USC Law School. And it was his first purchase. He had become a successful entertainment lawyer rather quickly. And he purchased Christina Onassis and Joe Boker's house. They were selling
Really?
the house. So it
Wow.
was actually something of a famous house
Yes.
at the time. I was just starting in my career and was being mentored by a more experienced agent who really kind of took the lead and helped me. But I remember she made a huge mistake because she told him, and I can't remember the numbers exactly, but she said, offer, I don't know what she said at the time, 123 or something. They'll take
Yeah.
that number. Whatever she
Right.
said,
Right.
she told him this, and he offered that price, and they did not take it. And I learned a very big lesson right from the get-go that you can never be sure of what somebody is going to take, and
Absolutely.
you have to be very careful in how you advise your buyer. And I thought, wow, and he was very upset about that, by the way.
I can only imagine. Joyce, I guess rewinding just a little bit, right? You started your career. You've had other careers before real estate, right? You were a flight attendant. You were, I believe, a teacher, a law professor. Like there were all of these things that you did before. I'm very curious. Two things. One is, why did you move into real estate? What got you into real estate? And two, talk about what we talked about, you and I, just before we started this show, which is the mindset that really transcended all of those careers. It was irrespective of the career. You have a particular mindset about service that I think is really important to hear.
Well, actually, I stumbled into real estate. It was my good fortune. I met and married a movie star. I was working as a flight attendant at the time. While I was teaching school, I held down two jobs. I worked on holidays and summers on an as a part-time airline stewardess, and the
Yeah.
rest of the time I was teaching school. And I had a flight pass to go to Acapulco, and my husband moved his seat from first class to tourist to sit next to me.
Huh.
And the rest is history. I married him, and we he was making movies around the world and so forth, and uh, we happened to buy and sell a couple of houses. And so I rather enjoyed the process, and I thought I think I'll read up on the books and take the real estate exam. I should have this background. And while I was doing that, a friend of my husband said, "Oh, Joyce would make a great realtor. Why doesn't she hang her license with me?"
Yeah.
And that was the gal that got the first client mad because she gave him the wrong advice.
Right. Oh my goodness.
But it was it was really kind of accidental. But I loved it from the first day I sat in that first sales meeting, and it was so exciting. It was so challenging, and there was so much to learn.
Absolutely, Joyce. And you shared with me that whether when you were a flight attendant, whether you were serving drinks, or as a teacher, you were preparing students for their future, right? That mindset of service and making sure that people are successful and prepared is something that really transcended all of those jobs.
Yes, I've always had the goal of being the best I can possibly be. And whether you're, and actually, if you're a flight attendant and you are flying between Los Angeles and Las Vegas, everyone on that plane wants a drink.
That's
So believe
fact.
me, it's a 48-minute flight and you are busy. But that's the job, and that's what you want to do. You want to make sure everybody is satisfied.
Absolutely. You've been doing this long enough, Joyce, right, that you've seen lots of different people come and go in this industry. And so when you think about, I don't know, the millennial crop of agents who've come in, how do you advise them? I'm sure you spend a fair amount of time with your teams or extended teams and sort of coaching and providing mentorship. The basics are the same, right? But what do you say to somebody who's coming into the business, in 2020 and wants to have a career like you've had?
Well, I think it's interesting. Certain things about the business really haven't changed.
Yes.
But I think that the main thing is just a commitment to the business, to learning and growing, and the number one thing is integrity. You always have to put your client's best interest first. And if you're willing to work hard, you're willing to grow, you're willing to study every aspect of the business, because there are so many things to learn, whether it's marketing, whether it's the contracts, whether it's the inventory. I mean, learning the inventory. Now it's much easier to learn the inventory if you think about it. I mean, when I started, there were no computers. We didn't even photograph our listings. 45 years ago, we ran a 2-line ad in a classified section in the newspaper. The only photograph was the multiple listing service went by and photographed whatever they found at the front of your property. And that went into a multiple listing book. And that was it. There was no photograph. There was no advertising. There was no marketing. So that has changed 5,000%.
Yes.
But, now social media alone is a full-time job.
It is.
I mean, some people make their living on social media. So there's a very important component of our business that one has to master as well. So it's a challenging job, but it's an exciting one and worthwhile. And I remember my first year in real estate, I didn't sell a house. I leased a couple of houses, and I had a couple of unfortunate experiences where a client kind of cheated me out of a commission, and I spent a lot of time with a buyer who decided not to move. But that buyer told all their friends what a great job I'd done. So the business started rolling in. And by the second year, I was going strong. But I remember that first Christmas, I got a Christmas card from one of the guys in the office, and it said, hard work equals dollars. And I thought to myself, I have worked so hard and I haven't sold a house.
Where are the dollars?
Yes, it didn't happen. But, and other agents start out and sell a house the first month. So, it varies with everyone. But,
It does.
keeping at it, working hard, making sure you know everything you can know. You have to be determined to find that house for that buyer, or find that buyer for your listing. And and of course, a lot of it is based on relationships. And when I started in the business, I had strong relationships. I had strong relationships with the people I had gone to college with. I had strong relationships through my husband's entertainment industry friends and so forth. So,
yeah.
That was certainly an added help to have a large network of friendships where people trust you, because trust is the real basis of our business. And that's why integrity is the number one point of a successful career. No one would be successful unless they are honorable in every respect.
I couldn't agree more with you, Joyce. And one of the things that I think some agents struggle with, and I hope that this never crosses the line of not acting with integrity, is that, to your point, is you're working hard, and this is a business that only rewards you in success. And so you're putting in the work and you don't have any listings, and then you get that listing and you get that paycheck, and then you may not have a paycheck again for months. And it's a very difficult place to operate from, right? It's a place of fear for a lot of people, but I think you're right. There's no substitute for hard work, and no matter what, you have to act with integrity. You said something else, Joyce, I just wanted to touch on, right? Which is, you talked about one of the things that you love about this industry, and one of the things, frankly, that I love about this industry, and the reason, Joyce, that we call our agent users, we have 250,000 agents across the country who use our products. We call them agentpreneurs, right? So I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm a business founder. We call them agentpreneurs because there's so many parallels there, and I'm curious to get you to react to that, because this is a business where the sky's the limit, right? There's no limit to what you can do or what you can be in this business, and it provides a lot of flexibility for people. So I just love that term that we've coined, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yes, I love that. That's a great, we are our own boss. And that gives you the sky if you want it, or mediocrity if you don't.
Right, absolutely. And I remember, Joyce, it's just funny to hear you tell these stories, and maybe we'll get into a couple anecdotes, because everyone loves a good story. But, I grew up, yes, my grandmother was a real estate agent. And though I never became one, she was a real estate agent in the 50s who was the primary income earner, right? This was a very empowering industry for women in particular, certainly during that time. And I grew up as a child with exactly what you said, that MLS book. She'd get the book and I'd sit at the kitchen table and I'd flip through it, and it was black and white photos and price, beds, bath, square footage, and then maybe 2 little sentences, and that's what inventory was, right? And so the technology and the tools have changed, and now social media has such a big presence in it. And it's something that I find fascinating about this industry, Joyce, which is that it's moving so quickly, and now you've got iBuyers buying your house, and you've got so many different things, but at the end of the day, people still want somebody to work with because it's a complicated transaction. It's the biggest financial decision they've ever made. It's the largest generator of net worth, right, for Americans. It's
Definitely.
so much rolled up into this. It's just a fascinating industry.
And as a result of the importance of that process and the time involved, you really develop wonderful connections to people. And that's the great reward, the great reward of our business.
I have to imagine, Joyce, that you are at a point in your career where you have likely sold homes to the children of some of your early buyers or sellers, and that must be, it's like when you're a teacher and your student comes back after they've graduated and got into their career. It must be a very rewarding thing for you.
I was actually on a Zoom call yesterday with the daughter of my college roommate.
Wow.
And she was Zooming from her backyard. I said, gosh, your yard looks great. She said, I wouldn't have this yard if it wasn't for you.
I love that. I love that. What an impact. So maybe we'll just tell a couple stories because I think stories are fun. There was an exchange in the Hollywood Reporter. I think you were asked, what's the best Hollywood depiction of a real estate agent? And I think your response was that Annette Bening, and you did represent her. And it made me a little nervous when I saw American Beauty because I certainly hoped that she wasn't portraying me. I love that.
I was a little worried about that. I didn't actually sell Warren and Annette a house, but I did show them a lot of houses, and that movie worried me. She was a nervous wreck.
Yes, she was. Everybody loves a good story, loves a good anecdote, and you've had such a storied career. Is there something that stands out, a great memory, a great story that you could share?
Well, there's one that everyone loves, and it's one of my favorites, and it harkens back to my early days as a realtor. I had sold a house to Lee Strasberg, who was the famous acting teacher, and he had been looking for a house for many, many years. So the fact that I showed him one house and sold him that house, he thought I was a genius, even though I'd been in the business only a couple of years. So he recommended me to everyone, one of whom was Shelley Winters. So I began showing Shelley houses. And one day we got to a particularly attractive house up in Hidden Valley off Coldwater Canyon. And she was quite overweight, and she had a big muumuu on. And she got to the side of the swimming pool. She threw off her muumuu, dived in the pool with nothing on.
No.
The other realtor was a gentleman. And I said, don't just stand there, get a towel. So he runs, he gets a towel, she swims in the pool. So she decides she's going to make an offer. The house at the time was about $275,000. And she said to me, I want to offer $250,000. I said, well, that's a little low, but we'll try it. So I remember it was a Sunday morning, and in those days, you typed up the offer on a typewriter. So I'm sitting in the office Sunday morning typing up this offer, and an old timer comes in the office and says, Joyce, what are you doing? And I said, I'm typing an offer. I'm so excited for Shelley Winters. And she said, oh, Shelley Winters has been looking for a house for 30 years. She's the biggest looky-loo in the business. She'll never buy a house. I said, really? So I get the, and in that moment, it's Shelley on the phone. She said, Joyce, I'm not sure if I want to get this house or not. And I said, Shelley, your offer is so low, I wouldn't worry about it. You probably won't get it anyway. So she says, okay. Now, I would have never said that ordinarily if that woman hadn't walked in the office. So I go over, I have her sign. Those were the old days where you met with people in person. She signs the offer. Now I have a meeting with the business manager to present the offer. He looks at the offer, he says, this offer is low. I said, I realize it's low, but I said, if you want to sell the house now to Shelley Winters, you have to sign this offer. You cannot counteroffer. Yeah. So they signed the offer. She bought the house. And some 15 years later, she calls me up and she says, Joyce, I'd like you to come over. I'd like to see you. So I go over to her house, and she has written this best-selling autobiography titled Shelley. And she wrote in the book to me, to Joyce, who sold me the house that gave me the peace of mind to write this book.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a great story. Oh.
Isn't that a great story?
That's such a great story. Gosh, I love that. How fun. I mean, you've had such, I'm sure you feel lucky, right? I mean, I feel lucky in what I do and blessed. I'm sure you feel lucky to have had this amazing career and to have had a chance to work with such amazing people.
Yes, I mean, I've sold houses to everyone from Lionel Richie to Jeff Bezos, and it's been a wonderful ride and the most fabulous people I've met along the way.
That's incredible. That is incredible. Joyce, again, thank you so much for doing this. As we wrap up here, I guess I'd ask you one last question, which is, for those agents who are watching right now and they look at you and they're like, gosh, what an amazing career, right? What words do you have for them? What sort of parting words of wisdom or advice do you have for the agents who are listening?
Well, there's no substitute for hard work.
Yeah.
That's it. No matter what you do, that shines through.
100% agree, Joyce. I think I've had the good privilege of being able to talk to lots of different agents, and that is the consistent theme, is they are all hard workers. They work hard for their clients. They're passionate about what they do. And you and I talked about this, right, just before this call, which is if you don't love what you do, you're not going to be able to work hard. There's, Joyce, a great book, one of my favorite books of the year that I've read. It's called The 9 Lies About Work. And one of the lies is this idea of what they call work-life balance. And the point they make is it's not about work-life balance, it's about finding love in your work. And that makes all the difference. And I know it's very clear and evident that you have a lot of love in what you do. And so I appreciate you doing this with us today.
Well, it was really fun. I enjoyed it, Randy.
I did too, Joyce. I did too. Well, hopefully our paths will cross again in the future. I would love to have a chance to talk to you at some time, hopefully in the future.
Great. Great.
All right,
great.
Joyce. Thank you so much for joining today.
See you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, there you have it. What an amazing woman. What an amazing career. As I shared, just as an anecdote, right? You know, my grandmother growing up in the 50s, she was in real estate, and this was such an empowering career for women. This changed the game, and there's no limit. So it's a tremendous industry. I'm happy, frankly, to see a lot of the changes that are happening. I'm happy to see the current reliance on agents to help go through these transactions. And I'm hopeful through technology like what we build that we can make that easier and more accessible, because as an agentpreneur, there's a lot that you have to do, and it's not easy to be able to stay on top of all of these things. So, you know, listen to Joyce, listen to the career that she's had and the words of service that she talked about in hard work, and make sure you apply those things, because that's the only way to maximize your chances of being successful. And if you want a good book to read Annie Duke's Thinking in Bets, right? We can't always measure success based on the outcome. We have to measure it based on the inputs. And one of those critical inputs is one of integrity, it's one of hard work, and it's one of service. And if you do those things, you're going to maximize your chances of being like Joyce one day in the future. So until tomorrow, be safe, be healthy, be happy, and we'll see you soon. Bye.